everybody. Welcome to the Cinema Club podcast. I am your host, Nick Leach, and I'm so excited to have you on this episode. The Cinema Club is like a book club, but for movies. Every other week, I invite one member of the Cinema Club to be my co-host for that week, who will choose the movie of the week and join me on the podcast to talk about the film. This week, we're going to be talking about the debut film of Jennifer Caton Robinson, Someone Great. It's an hour and 32 minutes in running time and 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I am so excited to have you guys listen to this episode. The movie is a little bit of a departure from the movies that we have done already, but that's the whole point of the Cinema Club, so please enjoy this episode.
Nick.
Jenny.
Oh, that's some strong, prolonged eye contact, so we're gonna bounce.
Yep.
We were together 9 years. I thought we could handle anything until...
I actually just got a job in San Francisco.
I just don't feel like I'm ready to leave New York.
Why he leave you like that?
He didn't even want to try.
Why he want to try? Look at you with your pretty teeth and shit.
Thank you. You're beautiful.
Am I?
Come on, girl.
I feel like we're before and after pictures right now. Why men great till they gotta be great? Woo. I just took a DNA test. Turns out I'm a...
Who I gotta kill?
You okay? Basically, I just really want you to call your place of work and tell them you have your period or something and then just come over my apartment.
You know the beginning of a disaster movie, like right before the girl who looks like me dies, and like right when a girl who looked like you walk outside and be like, oh my God, look how crazy the sky looks. This feels like that.
I got boy problems, that's the human in me.
I leave in a week, and then I turn 30, and then I die probably.
I need one last epic day with my girls.
You could've had a bad bitch, not committal. Help you with your career, just a little. You're supposed to hold me down, but you're holding me back.
I am deeply obsessed with us right now.
I can't leave New York City like this.
This is the end of an era. Everything's changing.
I mean, we're out here taking risks.
You have a girlfriend.
Whatever. Kindly leave your heteronormative labels in a motherfucking box. Thank you. Making choices.
Do you still have that boyfriend you hate?
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry, I was just goofing around.
Yes.
This just can't be where it ends. This is destiny. You are Beyonce.
Jenny, we know you're texting him. Fuck! No, you can do it.
I love you guys, for real.
Our best friend is out there drinking champagne from a bottle of green juice.
I just want to scoop her up and make it all go away. Wait, is the green juice mimosa? It's kind of genius.
I feel better now. I'm gonna pick that up. Baby, you just take all my love.
And just to be completely clear before we get into the episode and I introduce my guests, I just want to give a huge spoiler warning because we are going to be talking about anything and everything about the film. So I want to welcome my guests for this week's episode, and let's start off by introducing our co-host for the week, the person that chose the movie, and that is Kayla Senzo. Nice to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Kayla.
So I'm a senior at ECU. I'm a film student. I'm graduating in May, and I'm super excited to be on the podcast today.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. And our special guest is a return to the podcast. Y'all remember him as our co-host from the Citizen Kane episode, and that is Tim. Tim Messina, nice to have you on.
Great to be here, as always. I'm a worship leader at a local United Methodist Church here in town. I'm the director of the contemporary music there. And I also do, whenever we have local theater, community theater shows, I am usually involved in that as well. I act on the side, and I'm a huge cinephile. And so, yeah, I love movies, and I love to be a part of things like this.
Well, we're so glad to have you back on this episode. We really had a great time with the Citizen Kane supersized episode. So glad to have you back, man. So this week, As I said, we are talking about the film Someone Great. So, Kayla, why don't you, since you chose the episode, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you chose this episode to share with the group?
Yeah, so this is just like my comfort movie. I watch this movie all the time. It's kind of just like a fun, easy watch, like romantic comedy. I watched it a couple of years ago. It's a Netflix original. I always love everything from Netflix anyway, but this is just my favorite. Yeah, Netflix has some great stuff. I'm always impressed by them. They are a movie and TV giant, but a lot of people like to shit on Netflix originals. They like to think of them kind of in the same category, especially the romantic comedies and romantic movies kind of in the same lane as the Hallmark Channel movies, but they are not. They are so much better, and the production quality on them is amazing. Yeah, I totally agree.
Same.
Great. Well, then let's get into the episode. So Jenny, a music journalist living in New York City, lands her dream job with Rolling Stone in San Francisco. Her boyfriend of 9 years, Nate, breaks up with her and she spirals into a depression. Her best friend's Aaron, a real estate agent afraid to admit her feelings to her girlfriend Leia, and Blair, a social media manager who needs to break up with her boyfriend Will, with whom she has lost chemistry, are the only ones who can bring her out of it. Jenny contacts Aaron and Blair after learning a concert series known as Neon Classic is putting on a pop-up show at Sony Hall and proposes one last adventure together before she moves, both to celebrate a new chapter in her life and to mend her broken heart. So this movie, it takes the overplayed trope of a romantic comedy. I mean, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, they fall in love together and whatever. And it kind of reverses that. And I think that's a really fresh take on romantic comedies and really more delves into the breakup movie category. And I thought that this one did a really good job, especially starting out, to really give you a lot of exposition, but in a modern way, a way that really doesn't feel like an exposition dump. And I thought it was a really, really unique take on the genre.
Yeah. I think the thing that I like about this movie the most is that it's not like the typical, like the girl is just like going crazy after the guy, even after they break up. They use like flashbacks a ton in this movie, and it kind of makes you think it's going that way. But then it kind of ends where it's like, oh, just kidding. I don't need you. I'm fine. Like the guy comes back and she's like, no, I'm good. Like, and I love that because it's like girl power.
I know, exactly. And what really made me happy and my favorite thing about it is Gina Rodriguez's character Jenny is such a strong female. I mean, instead of the guy carrying the girl on his back, she's giving him piggybacks. I mean, she's super strong physically and her character is super strong. I mean, she takes the breakup better than a lot of people take up breakups. And it's so great, I think, especially for young girls and even guys today, teens, people in their formative years. It gives them such a great role model in Gina's character of Jenny.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's something that was crazy because at the end, like they kind of meet up and you're like, okay, they're going to get back together. He's going to move with her, like whatever. And then she's like, no, like I'm fine. You can stay here. I'm going to do my own thing. Like, and I was like, okay, like it was just different, you know?
And I agree that she is incredibly strong, but she is also incredibly human and incredibly like broken up by this. But she tries so hard not to completely show it, especially just for her friends and stuff. But she is, you can absolutely tell that her emotions are right out there on display, especially when a certain song comes on and just reminds her of everything. And it's, I just think it's really, really powerful. Those flashbacks, as you mentioned, are some of my favorite parts of the entire movie. They're just, as you said, Nick, it's not so much a exposition dump, but very well paced for all of that. So I very much agree with that.
I mean, and just to talk also just about how real she is, this movie really does a really great job on making it feel like the characters are real people. I mean, the chemistry that the three friends have for each other, their friendship, it seems real. It looks real. The relationship she has with Nate, it seems like a real relationship that actually could happen. And Jenny's reactions to everything are genuine. It feels real. We feel for her, and she's a real person. She's not a perfect person in any sense, but she still is strong, but in a very vulnerable and a very human way.
Yeah, I think that's why I like it too. She's very relatable. It's not, and also like I think the writing in a lot of, especially like the Netflix movies, can start to get a little cheesy, and like it almost feels like they don't even know people in their 20s. Like we don't talk like that, but in this movie particularly, I think that they did the writing so well. Because like there's so many scenes like where they're talking on the phone, and I'm like, that's me and my friends. Like I relate to her so much.
And also to go into the exposition. I mean, so many movies really just, to give you the background of a story, they really give you exposition dumps, and it really is like, really, okay, you're not going to do something creative. But the way that they do it here is they do it on that subway scene with that random person that she's talking to. And it really seems, I mean, it's a great way to show exposition to she's saying, hey, she's just talking to this random person. She's drunk.
Yeah, I love that scene. That's probably one of my favorite scenes, like out of the whole movie. It's just so funny and so like raw. And I think, the part where she's like, we look like before and after images or whatever, like that kills me every single time. It's just so funny.
I laughed so hard when they did that. And you can tell too that most of that scene is probably improvised. It's so good.
I came into this film watching it. I watched it just a couple hours ago, in fact, for the first time, not knowing really anything about it. So I just know that it existed pretty much. And so seeing that opening scene of that conversation that you just mentioned threw me for a loop for a second, because I thought that she was actually going to be a character that we would see more, but no, just some random person. Then she lives, and she's like, what the hell just happened? So
I'm done with this conversation. I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think it started the movie off so good. I remember when it came out a couple of years ago, I saw that and I'm like, oh, I love this. This is funny. I'll keep watching. And then like I ended up loving the movie and like forcing all my friends to watch it.
But also, I just love how they do the different flashback scenes. I mean, they do it in different ways throughout the movie. I mean, there was one scene where it was like a oneer scene where things were happening, and it was just them going down the side of a street, and the different points in their relationship were coming. But what I thought was really creative was right at the beginning when they were using the technology and showing the text that they were having between each other, going on Facebook, going on Twitter, and all that kind of stuff. It was really a creative way to show their past and really bring up the fact that this is a modern romance. This is a modern relationship taking part on and through social media. And what it really like reminded me of was, I'm not sure if you guys have watched the show Modern Family, but Modern Family did an episode that was very similar to this. And I just thought that was so creative through Modern Family the first time I saw it, but also that they did it in this movie using social media and showing how their relationship was happening also on there.
Yeah, I think that is what makes it so relatable, because like that's the reality of like every relationship now. It's not just like in-person stuff. It's like what you post online and like what your friends are commenting and things like that. So I thought it was like, and it wasn't like cheesy the way they did it. Like it felt natural and like right, you know?
I agree. It definitely felt fresh and not like it was written by someone who had been a 20-something maybe a decade or two ago, but someone who lives that life right now. Maybe it just came out of their 20s. A lot of this film deals with getting out of your 20s and deciding what growing up really means. And it's definitely written by someone that's experienced it, I feel.
And tell me if I'm wrong. Wasn't this the director, Jennifer Caton Robinson? Wasn't this her debut film?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that it was her debut film. She had directed a couple episodes of a couple shows, I think, but this was really her film debut. And what an awesome debut for a film.
Agreed. Good call.
Well, the girls meet up by taking a day off of work. Throughout the day, they find it difficult to secure tickets for the concert, eventually obtaining them through Jenny's former college crush, Matt, whom Blair has had sex. Aaron and Jenny run into Leah, and Aaron clearly having some unresolved issues stemming from her fear of commitment. Blair breaks up with Will after finding him at her apartment without her, and it ends amicably. The girls all go to the concert in the evening, and Jenny runs into Nate, but cannot bring herself to talk to him and gets separated from her friends. Matt takes her to the after party where she realizes she needs closure. So that is a lot of time that I've just gone through. But the one thing that I really want to bring up is just the relationship that Blair has with Will. I thought that was such a funny relationship. I mean, Will really is like an overly like clingy type boyfriend, and we find out later that that's kind of just a show. But it's such a funny relationship, and I know so many friends who are in that kind of relationship, and it's really as annoying as it seems on screen.
Yeah, that always made me laugh, that whole thing, because like her roommate's like, no, like you just need to break up with him. I don't know why you're still with him. And she's like, I know, I just feel bad. Like I can't. And like I've had so many friends that have had that situation where they're like, oh, we've been together a while. I feel bad. Like I can't. And it's like, what?
It's like you have these character dynamics throughout the whole movie where the chemistry is just so great. And then you see the two of them and they have completely opposite dynamics. He is like, yeah, I'm going to be funny because I like being funny and it's cute and you think it's cute. And she's like, no.
She's like, yeah, I don't like you at all.
Right, exactly. But what I really appreciate about each of the characters is each of them are really in different places in their life. I mean, Blair is really ready to settle down. She says that she wanted to marry before 30. She's just coming on 30 and she doesn't have her life together, but she wants it to be. She has this plan. I mean, she has a great job as a social media manager. We see when they come and they find her at her meeting, like she's killing it at this point in her life. Whereas Erin is kind of all over the place. She doesn't want to commit. Her issue really is she doesn't want to grow up and she's so afraid of growing up. And Jenny is just all over the place trying to figure out. She's very successful and really at the next point in her life, next stage in her life. And it's really the strength that she needs to get her to the next stage in her life, you know?
Especially after ending such a huge portion of her life. I mean, 9 years is not heard of very often these days for a committed relationship, and that it's commendable for even that long. But it just ended up
especially 9 years and then deciding to break up after 9 years. I mean, 9 years. I mean, you're hearing church bells at this point, but 9 years and finally getting the courage to say, you know what, we're each at different places, and being brave enough to say, hey, we're two different people. Because 9 years, like you said, is a long time, especially at that stage in life. I mean, they got together in their sophomore year of college and then they graduated, they got their own jobs and everything, and they kind of drifted apart. But at that point, 9 years later, they finally were big enough to say, hey, we're two completely different people. Let's just go our separate ways and be okay with it. And that's really what Jenny's whole journey is through the entire movie is coming to grips with that and accepting that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that happens a lot. Like, it's okay to recognize you like outgrew somebody, like, especially as a sophomore in college, like whoever I dated when I was a sophomore, we're two different people. Even now, like looking at where they're at now in their life and where I'm at in my life, it's like, okay, it was good that we broke up. We outgrew each other. But it's like some people don't want to like admit that. But and it's hard, like when you date for that long, because it's like you've done so many things with somebody and you have such like history with somebody. So it's like, how do you end that? And I think with this, it was like, she was like excited. Like she got her new job all the way across the country. And he was like, I don't want to move. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, and that's where they're outgrowing each other. She's like, okay, well, I want to do this. I don't want to make you move because you're doing your thing. I'm doing my thing. And I think that was really mature of them at the end.
Yeah, it really hit me really deep, her whole relationship with Nate, because I mean, I see so much parallels with me and my wife in our relationship. We're completely different people than where we were even 6 years ago when we met each other. And it's just so interesting to see the parallels and how if you guys aren't actually putting the work in to meet each other where each other are at and accept each other where each other are at and actually want to be on the journey, even if that journey isn't particularly the avenue that you specifically want to go down. I mean, having the strength to actually say, you know what, I'll change for this person. I'll actually put the work in. And I think that really then really shows where Erin's journey is. I mean, in the end, when she and Leah come together, she says, you know what, I love you and I want to be with you, but I'm willing to grow up because I want to be with you.
Yeah, I think their relationship was one that I really, really enjoyed because Leo was like super, like, I know I love you. I know I want to be with you. I just know you're not ready. And she just was at that point where like, and I have plenty of friends that are like that have someone that they can totally be with, but they're like, oh, I just still want to be single. I just want to like, experience stuff. And it's like, okay, well, you're getting to a certain age now. Like this person loves you. They're right for you. Like what's holding you back? And I think the part where she realizes and she's like, okay, like, I'm ready. Like, I do love you. I realized it. I just needed to like get out of my own head. Like, I think that part was really like a special moment in the movie.
And it's tough to get out of any comfort zone that you have, especially if it's holding you back from things. But even if you don't realize that it's holding you back from stuff, or even if you do realize that it's holding you back from stuff, it's still a comfort zone. Even with Blair and her boyfriend, that was somewhat of a comfort zone because they've had this routine. They've done their this stuff for however long it was. But even as they're falling apart from each other, they were originally thinking, they'll just stay together until she finally decides to break it off. But it takes a lot of courage to change your comfort zones. Like me, I'm trying to start like dieting, for instance. I have my comfort foods that I really like, but I have to get rid of like all of them in order to really lose so much weight on that. And it's a similar thing on that.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting with Blair and Will because both of them were really in that comfort zone. Even Will was. I mean, Will at the start of the movie seemed like he was all in, but we find out when she finally breaks up with him that he was in the same boat that she was. He was just in that comfort zone as well. And when she says, I think we need to be done, he just is like, great, I'm good with this too. I thought the same thing for a while. Like they felt safe in that, but they weren't quite ready. Each of them wasn't quite ready to say, you know what, this isn't working because like you said, it was their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think with that relationship, it was funny because they both mutually were like, no, like this isn't for me anymore. But like nobody was like willing to say it first. And thankfully Blair got encouraged by her friends to finally say it. But I've totally had friends like that are like in these relationships. And I'm like, why are you with this person? They're like, oh, I just don't want to go out in the dating world again. Like I hear what you like. My stories, like I've been single for a while and like, I'll be like, oh, this happened or this happened. They're like, I don't want to have to deal with that. And I'm like, but you're unhappy. Like what? Like, and I think that's what all of her friends were kind of saying. They're like, what are you doing? We all hate this guy. Like he's terrible. You don't like him just because you're scared to get out in the dating world again. Like just break up with him. Like, but it's hard to make that first step.
But also what is wrong with being single? Seriously, like at least we grew up in an age where, I mean, it was the socially acceptable and socially like expected thing to do is to be in a relationship, to date. But we're getting to a point in society and as a culture where being single is not like it's a more acceptable thing. And it's not a bad thing either, because and it's something that we talked about in just a recent episode is the fact that the point of being single is to really find out who you are, accept who you are, because it's only when you are able to accept who you are as an individual and to be okay with that and to love yourself, where then you're ready for a relationship, because you don't want to be in a relationship and still trying to be figuring yourself out, because that's not only really hard for yourself, but it's really hard and almost damaging for a relationship to be trying to find who you are in spite of somebody else and to the detriment of somebody else, really.
Yeah. And I think also like in college, like when I was coming out of high school, my thought process was like, oh, I'm in college, like I have to find my serious relationship now. And like I had a couple, and then I was like, I saw all my friends having fun and like figuring out who they were and doing those things. And I'm just like, oh, I'm this person's girlfriend. Like, okay. Like, so after that was over, from sophomore year on, I've pretty much been like doing my own thing. And I think I've definitely like come into my own and like figured out who I am, because I'm not someone's girlfriend. I'm me. And a lot of my friends too, like I've had friends that like have dated guys all through college, and now they're like, I wish I didn't do that. Like I love him, but like I wish I kind of just like did my own thing and like had the college experience and like went out and like did things with you and your friends. And like, I love him and I'm glad I'm with him. But like, I just wish I could have met him later when I was like more ready to be done with that life. You know what I mean? And I think in college, I think that's like what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to figure out who you are. Like, and coming out of high school, like a lot of, especially girls, they don't realize they're like, oh, I'm getting older. I need to like have this serious relationship. I need to like get my life together. But you don't. Cause like, that's where you get it together in college. Like you figure things out, you graduate, then you're like, okay, like now I can start. And even in your early 20s, it's okay to be single and try to figure out who you are. When you're trying to, like for me, I'm just focusing on my career at this point. Like I'm not dating. I'm just like me, got to figure out my career. And some of my friends are still in their relationships and they're like, oh my gosh, like I wish I like would have did what you did and everything. So I'm glad I don't have that regret, you know?
There's something that I wish that I know why they didn't, but it was something that I wish that the movie did was touch more a little bit on that. They do that to an extent, but especially from the point of view of Nate, who is a wonderful actor. He mentioned early on that he doesn't know who he is. He reads something from Jenny's book. And he's just so impressed. And then he gets a little self-conscious, realizes that he has no idea what he wants to be. And she's incredibly encouraging and say, you'll figure it out. And then the only other time that they really touch on it from his point of view is on breaking up. So we are all we know. And it's a really sad moment, but he's right. That's all they've known for 9 years.
But that's such an interesting point. I didn't even think about that until now, but you're absolutely right. And that really shows how different these people were for each other. I mean, Jenny had it all together. She knew exactly what she wanted and Nate had no idea. And I think a good relationship, you're supposed to be helping each other be better people. And in this case, she really failed him. If they had been in a perfect relationship, maybe this was part of the reason. And I think part of the reason that they did eventually break up is that she should have been helping him along the way, figure out what he wanted to do, encouraging him to do other things, but she didn't. And so I think it's really important to see, especially in this movie, that a lot of the clues of this movie kind of pointed toward it being Nate's fault, Nate kind of doing this and that, but it really did show that it was both of them. Jenny wasn't the perfect person. She wasn't the perfect protagonist of the story. She was a human being, and what do humans do? We fuck up. And she really did fail him. And that's why then partly why they eventually broke up.
Yeah, I think she was very focused on herself a lot, which is like fine, but he kind of was falling through the cracks a little bit. I'm not saying like if you're dating someone, you're their whole thing. And like if you're not totally on them, then like they're going to lose themselves. But like, I know like for me, like if that was me, I would have been like, come on, like, let's try to figure things out. I would have like sat with them and been like, I know this is comfortable, but like, let's try to figure out what you like, try to get you like a nice career. Like I wouldn't be with someone that was just kind of like, I don't know, like me personally, but
in the movie, it was such a subtle way that they did it because in that scene, it's when they were by the fountain and they drew the heart when they were first starting their relationship. He read her notebook and said, how do you have it all together? I don't have anything figured out. But it's a little subtle thing, but I did notice it that as she did with so many of the moments in the film, she kind of played it off as a joke. She kind of came at it instead of in a serious way. She kind of made it kind of lighthearted, kind of joking, kind of just moved on from it and didn't even kind of, as your point, Kayla, she should have just in that moment tried to confront him on it and try to help him through it. She didn't. She kind of just shrugged it off and they both kept going. I think that was the moment that like you say, Kayla, she should have and could have really helped him.
Probably the one time where she does fight, she does help him on that is the I love you scene where she has no idea how to react to him genuinely saying I love you, and he doesn't know how to react to her reaction on that, but she realizes that I fucked this up, so I'm gonna go in and join him in the shower and actually say the words and yeah, that's good.
Because it was not that she did not love him. She did. She was just scared to admit it and scared to go for it, and that's so much of the time. I mean, being in relationships. You don't quite know if you can feel at that moment, especially if it's really early on.
Now, I made the mistake of saying those words like very early on in a relationship, former relationship that I had, and I had no idea that was a thing that you didn't do. You don't say those words after a certain point.
At least for me, I know like in high school relationships, it was like, oh, you're my girlfriend, I love you, like right away. Like that was the whole thing. And I think once I got to college, I was like, no, like I don't want anyone to say that to me unless they mean it. Cause it just is like a big thing. I don't know for everyone, but at least for me, like the first time I ever like actually told somebody, it was like, I was like, I thought about it. I like made sure like it was right. I didn't want to just say it and just to say it. You know what I mean? Cause then I feel like it loses its meaning. Cause then it's like, you can say that to anybody. You know what I mean? That's fair.
I know I sometimes when people say I love you, it's just a response, a natural response to say I love you back for me. But for others, it's a much bigger deal. And I totally understand like the stronger feelings. The English language, we have this word love, which can encompass so many degrees. And so I don't know, it's not necessarily in order to cheapen the word, but it's, I don't know, you can tell when it's serious and when not sometimes. That's just me.
I'm glad that you brought up the whole English language and the word of love, because this is something that I've thought of for many years, that it covers so much. There really should be. And there are, so in other languages, there are so many different words, whereas in the English language, we only have one word. The meaning of love is different for different people. And so it really comes down to finding out what that really means to the other person, and finding out when it's okay for that person to hear it themselves and be accepting that they are in that place as well.
Yeah. And I think also like you can know that you love someone, but I think like loving someone and being in love with someone is like different too. Like I can I love my friends. Like I can like start dating a guy. I'm like, oh, I love him. But like, I'm not in love with him. That's like totally different. Maybe that sounds crazy. But
no, not at all. That makes total sense. And I don't know, it's just that phenomenon of when to say it, especially if you do have those feelings early on, and maybe the other person doesn't. It's I don't know. It's a weird shootout situation.
Yeah, it can be awkward. I know, like the last relationship I had, like a couple of years ago, maybe we were dating like a month or something, and I was like, I love him. I am in love with him. I know it. Like, and I accidentally like let it slip, and he was like, and I was like, I'm making faces. But
it's the podcast, Kayla.
I know. I'm letting people know I'm making faces. And I have a lot of facial expressions. And I remember when we broke up, and he was like, "Yeah, you said it too early," and I was like, oh my God, okay, sorry. Like, but is it early if I felt it? Because I knew I felt it and I meant it. You know what I mean? Maybe for him, it was kind of like, what the heck? I barely know this girl. But for me, I knew it.
And what's so interesting about this scene in that movie and exactly what you're saying, I think it comes with maturity of the other person if they aren't in that place to not hold it against that person. I mean, a person who's feeling feelings should never be like punished for those feelings. I mean, even if the other person isn't at that place. And I think that both Jenny and your ex both kind of handled it wrong. I mean, I hope that a person on the opposite side should be at least accepting of it. And even if they're not in that place, be honest about that, but not hold that against that other person, because people have feelings. They can't help it. I mean, we're human beings. It's what we do. It's what makes us human beings, is the fact that we can feel these complex emotions that other species and other animals cannot feel. And we actually are able to understand that. And that's really what separates us and makes us human.
Yeah, I really like that scene, but I did think that she handled it kind of weird, because like she kind of made him feel weird about it, like right off the bat, even though at the end, like she ended up getting in a shower with him and that whole thing. But and she ended up saying it, which was cute. But like right at first he was like, oh my God, like I could tell, like if I was him and I was like, I walked away, I'd be like, I'm an idiot. This girl hates me. Like I should never have said that. Like she made him feel so stupid. And I know like it could possibly just have been she was just caught off guard and stuff. And she wasn't, like maybe she did love him and was in love with him, but like hadn't thought about it yet. So that could have been what that was, but it definitely was awkward at first.
But it also just goes to show how the writing in this is so real and how the feelings in this is so real. I mean, the whole fact that we're even talking about this, just this scene this much, is such a great thing, because and that's exactly, I think, what the director really wanted us to feel, because it is such a real kind of, I mean, it isn't an ideal situation. It isn't a perfect situation. It did eventually, I mean, become part of why they weren't perfect for each other and kind of drifted apart, because they were in totally different places in their relationship. But it's real. It feels real. And that's something that I also wanted to talk about. And Kayla, you kind of talked about this in an earlier conversation you and I had over Facebook, is the whole fact of the flashbacks. These flashback scenes feel so different from the regular scenes, and it's the color. The color of the film is one of my favorite things about this film.
Yeah, when I was writing my in school and I was writing my thesis before COVID, of course, I never got to film it. But when I was writing it and we were doing like lookbooks for like what we wanted it to look like, I put so many pictures from like this flashback, from like all the flashback scenes, because they're very like purple, pink, blue, like dark, like kind of, but like the neon lights. I love that.
Exactly. And it really ties into what brought these two people together. And it was the Neon Classic music concert. And so the Neon Classic goes into their relationship and really makes the relationship. And what I thought was really interesting in the way that Jennifer Robinson decided, and especially the cinematographer decided to go with the lighting on this, is to tie in those neon lights. The Neon Classic that brought these two together then becomes part of the flashbacks that she thinks about, and also ties in with the music, because so much of her memories are tied to when she hears a certain piece of music. It really triggers those flashbacks. So it all ties in really together with what brought them together in the Neon Classic show and concert series. And what is so cool, because all of the colors that they use aren't just a orange filter or a teal or magenta filter or whatever. These are very, very stark neon lights that are in the film. And I haven't seen it before in many movies. And I thought did a really good job to separate the flashbacks from reality.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times too, like, I'm trying to think of the show like This Is Us. A lot of their like flashback scenes, like you can tell it's a flashback because it's like darker or like whatever, or like 13 Reasons Why, that TV show. The modern day is like a different color, or like the past is like bright and everything, and then the modern day is like dark. It's like so obvious, but like this, like I just thought it was like different. It's not like the dark and bright. It's like the like vibrant neon colors, you know? It was just different. That's why I really liked it.
So I was just going to say that another example of that came out in late 2019 that really did that time frame change with colors is Greta Gerwig's adaptation of Little Women, because she decided to break up the time period instead of making it fully linear to show the present and then this show the past with two separate color grades, and with the past being the more vibrant and the present being far less vibrant, and just to show how the time had passed since then. And so I just thought that was totally brilliant.
Absolutely. But you know, the one time that she does have a flashback and it's actually in regular color, it isn't the neon colors, is when they break up. The breakup flashback that she thinks back to. That's the only time that it becomes real, and I thought that was such an interesting thing. Instead of taking and making it the neon colors, the kind of out of focus blur, it's where everything really comes down to the switching point into where she is now. You know,
it's so subtle. But it's such a good way to make that, as you said, it's her reality at that moment, and so it's a good filmmaking device, and I commend them for doing that.
But can we talk just a second about the cameos in this? I mean, we have RuPaul as Hype. I loved RuPaul in this. And we have Questlove as the DJ. Love Questlove. And then who else was it?
Rosario Dawson, my girl crush.
Oh, yes.
Had only one scene in the whole thing, and she was hilarious.
Killed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like the scene with RuPaul, like it almost feels random. And that's why I like this movie. There's a lot of like little random things, like when they're going to like find like weed or whatever they're looking for. And they walk in, they don't like, and it's not RuPaul. He's just some random guy that they get their weed from. And I just thought that was so funny. I love that.
And we're all like, oh my God, it's RuPaul. And the girls are just like, oh, hey, Hype.
Yeah. It's so funny.
I loved it.
I love that.
After Heart to Heart, where Erin admits she needs to grow up and Blair admits that she needs to lower her own expectations, they go find Jenny at the after party, but not before Erin meets up with Leah, and they acknowledge their feelings for each other and agree to take their relationship slow. So, like we said before, it's at this point that really each of these characters really have a turning point. I mean, at this, it's here right after the party that Jenny realizes that they are in different places. I mean, when she and Nate come to each other and see each other across the club, I mean, they don't even have to say a word to each other, but they realize that it's different now, that they're okay, they're both okay, and that they're going to be okay, and that it's okay for them to move on. And so Blair realizes that she really likes Matt and decides that she actually wants to have more experiences in life. She doesn't want to just settle down. She's okay with turning 30 and not being in a relationship and not having everything together, and that's okay. And Erin admits to Leah that she is ready to grow up, that she wants to go to the farmer's market. She wants to do the grown-up things. She's okay with taking that next step. And I think that was really a personal moment for me, because there's a lot of moments in the last year. I mean, I know a lot of us in this last year, especially going through COVID, we had to confront a lot of things that we have never had to before, and really had to learn how to grow up. I mean, I don't know if any of you, Tim, or any of you guys have lost jobs before, but I've been through 2 jobs in the last 6 months, 3 jobs in the last year, and it really makes you grow up, and it really makes you realize, you know what? I'm okay with growing up. I'm okay with letting go of the past. And that's really, really what growing up is. It's not losing who you are as a person. It's not losing those things that you like about the past. It's not losing your hobbies, about getting rid of having fun and everything. It's just accepting that there are different parts now of your life that you need to do, accept some more responsibility, and be okay with that, and know that it's just as fun doing the grown-up stuff as it is to do the kid stuff, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm turning 25 this year, and I'm still in college because I switched my major kind of late. So it kind of like gave me some extra years. But for me, I feel like they helped me, because like I don't know if I would have been ready at like 21 to like be graduated, having a real job, and like doing the adult thing. But like now I'm totally like got all the like fun partying, clubbing, college stuff out of my system. And now I want to like sit and drink a beer with my friends around a fire, like play little card games. Like I just want to do like the adult stuff now, like more like chill nights, and like focus on my career, and like get a good job, and like find my first apartment. Like all of those things are the exciting things for me now, you know?
Exactly, which I think is so great about this movie, is that it really does cover all the different walks of life. It covers all those really key moments in our lives that we're going through, especially in our formative years through college, right after college, as going into the adult life. It covers all the bases.
You can always find a character in this film to like relate to, whether it's either of the 3 girls or even Nate.
Which is why I can understand why you can keep coming back to this movie, Kayla, because it really is like something that 5 years down the road, you may really relate to a different character, because that's just where you are in life.
Yeah, I think this movie has like such a good rewatchability, like, and it's just like an easy watch. It's like fun. anytime I have friends over, I always like put this movie on in the background even, and I'll just like watch it and like, oh, I love this scene. Like,
it's so funny. The humor is actually good. It's not a forced kind of humor. I mean, one of my favorite jokes is when they go into Leah's clothing shop and somebody says about the outfit that Jenny's wearing, they're like, it's like Liz Lemon fucked a Salvation Army.
yeah. And then there's like the iconic scene of like when Jenny is dancing in her underwear in the kitchen to Truth Hurts by Lizzo, which like that, like the reason why that song got so big was from this movie. Like if you heard it on the radio, it's because of this movie. Like that scene is literally me and my friends. That's why I love that. I'm like, I could totally see that being me and my friends. Like
I dug a good bit of this the soundtrack because it went even from Vampire Weekend all the way to Lizzo, and I just thought it was a pretty. I'm less into pop music as I am to other genres, but I thought it was a good balance of different pop styles from those from that decade essentially. So I dug the soundtrack.
Yeah, this movie like literally like launched Lizzo's career, which I think is crazy.
That's cool.
But also just going with that, I mean, this movie not only just launched Lizzo's career, but even Taylor Swift wrote a song because she watched the movie.
I was going to bring that up. I love Taylor Swift. She loved this movie so much that she wrote a song called Death by a Thousand Cuts to like literally about this movie, which I love her. She's my idol. So to me, I'm like, that just like makes me love this movie even more.
You know, the movie is inspired by a Taylor Swift song, "Clean," off of 1989. Particularly, I'm looking at the wiki page right now. It's on there.
It's actually the whole album that inspired this movie.
When she put out "Lover," and I heard that song, I was like, that sounds like that movie. And then she was like, oh, there was this movie on Netflix that I love, and I was like, I know exactly which one. It's my favorite one too. But that's a great song as well. So.
But you know, the other part that was so interesting, the character of Matt really is such an unlikable character. He's such like a sleazy kind of douchebag, but there's one scene that really redeems him in my book, and that's when Jenny is going out and trying to get a ride out of the club, and Matt offers her a ride, and she kind of breaks down to him about the relationship, and he shares really a nugget of wisdom and something that I haven't heard before, but it's so profound. And he says, "You have been blessed with a broken heart. When it doesn't hurt anymore, that's when you know it's over." I mean, there's so many times in relationships where if you're in a breakup that's really terrible, really bad, really painful breakup, that you just want to get out of it. You want to try to just move on from it as quickly as you can. But really, the pain is what makes us know that that relationship is never going to be over. I mean, I think back to my past relationships, and there still is pain there, but I would not give up that pain for anything because of what it reminded me of, because every relationship that we have that is a part of our past is important, because not only is it important to remember for just nostalgia's sake, but it also made you the person that you are now. It changed you. And it really, that scene in particular and that line in particular really hit me deep, because I thank my exes for the relationships we had, and I would not take away that pain for anything. And I never actually want to forget that. I mean, I told my friends a lot during high school, your heart is made up of a million pieces, and each time you fall in love, a piece of your heart goes with that person and it never comes back. And that just makes us who we are.
Yeah. And I also don't think that you should, because I think a lot of, at least for me, like I know like what I won't accept anymore either. And I can be like, oh, I don't ever want to be that way again. I don't want to ever be treated like that again. Or even like the good things, like, oh, like I hope in my next partner, like I have like this from this person, like kind of like little things. But you kind of like realize like, okay, like it was good for my character. Like it helped build my character even more. You know what I mean?
This makes me think of two separate films. One, it's the opposite reaction to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where they decide to erase each other from their minds. But what do they learn? They keep coming back to each other, and they keep separating. If I interpret the final like repeating shot that fades away correctly, they keep coming back, and they just don't learn. And then also a recent quote from the penultimate episode of WandaVision. What is grief but love persevering? Very similar.
Love WandaVision.
Yes.
So Aaron and Blair discover that Jenny is no longer at the after party and are initially confused when they are told that Jenny left to quote, quote, finish it, referring to the relationship. Aaron realizes that Jenny went to Washington Square Park, where the relationship with Nate began. Jenny is found sitting on the side of the fountain where 9 years prior he had written their initials with a smiley face inscribed within a heart. Initially, it seemed that Nate came to apologize and asked to take her back, but this is proven to be a dream that Jenny had after she passed out. Blair and Aaron come to find her, and the three walk off together, promising that their friendship will stay strong even after Jenny leaves for San Francisco. Again, going back to just the profound writing in here, my favorite scene really is when Jenny is sitting on the subway and writing in her journal. And she says, somewhere between then and now, here and there, I guess we didn't just grow apart. We grew up. The two people, like I said previously, they are different people because they grew up. They didn't just grow apart. The things that happened, the flashbacks that happened throughout the film of the different key moments in their relationship, it wasn't them just growing apart. They were becoming different people because they were growing up.
Yeah. And I think that happens a lot, especially like with like the college relationships. Like when you're a sophomore, you're like 18, 19 years old, like you're going to completely be a different person when you're 19. And then when you graduate and you're working and you're like 23, 24, 25, like those are two, like, I don't even know her, like the person that I was when I was 19. So
same, like I said, I ended in a completely different career path and degree than when I started college. Before I got into college, my dream for the Nick that was going to be grown up Nick is a completely different job, completely different career, completely different life than what I have now. And I appreciate and would not take back the changes that I made. But at the same time, it's a completely different person. Like you say, you can't recognize that person today. And why, especially with these two, if you're in a relationship and you're not willing to make the changes together as a couple, of course it isn't going to work.
And I think I liked how it kind of got away from like, it didn't do like the typical happy ending where like they get back together and everything's fine. Like he doesn't come back, like it's a dream. And she just is like, okay, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm just going to move. I'm going to miss my friends. That's what I care about, but I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to work on my career. Like it's fine.
And it goes back to just how real this film is, because that is reality. I mean, what relationship out there? I mean, it's 1 in a million that has that fairy tale ending. That's not life. That is film. And that's what I appreciate about this movie, especially, that though it really is a rom-com, it is a romantic movie. It isn't the typical romantic movie. And it's more that someone great in the title is not so much about that someone great for her. It's that she realized that she was great. She was that someone great, and that her friends were the people that were most important, the people that she loved the most, and that they were never going to go away. And that's what also so timely that and really sets it apart from other movies is the fact that her going to San Francisco in like 10 years ago would mean that she would have to leave these friends behind her and they would never really see each other again. And what Erin says to her is, she's like, girl, we can still FaceTime. You leaving does not mean we have to end our friendship. We're still going to be pooping together on FaceTime.
I love that.
And Blair's like, no, don't. don't bring me in that. Yeah, no.
That's why this movie is so it's so relatable to us today, because that is today. I mean, we don't have to worry about having long distance friendships. I mean, we can still, and that goes back to the montage earlier in the film, how technology really is, it plays such a role in us today, and why I think this film is such a needed film today, because rom-coms of 10, 15 years ago don't hold up to today's standards, and that's why this film really feels real.
And once again, a lot of those rom-coms from 10 to 15 years ago were written by people that were in that stage 10 to 15 years prior, and so it feels like that. And so that's why I feel like that's the person that wrote this one, Jennifer Keaton Robinson. Her wiki doesn't have her dates on here, but it's more present. She's a person who's been more present. So yeah, I can't say that 10 to 15 years in the future, just how much this will remain the style, especially with dialogue and stuff like that. But the presence at least today is right on.
Yeah, I think, and I mentioned this earlier, but it was interesting too, because I always find and I've had plenty of friends do this where they're dating someone for a couple of years and then they get a job in another state and they're like, move with me. And they just take up their whole life and they move with the guy. And I think this was kind of cool because it's the girl finally has the job and now the guy's not willing to move. And it's that's interesting. But I like that. Like I said, she doesn't care at the end and she's it's fine. This is what's right for me in this time. And you can do your thing and I'm going to do mine.
So with that, I think we've come to the end of at least the synopsis. So this is the point of the show where I want to, kind of turn it over to you, Kayla, since you are the co-host. If there was anything that we didn't cover, if there was anything that you wanted to add, any of your thoughts that we didn't cover yet, that you thought about the movie.
Honestly, I feel like we've definitely covered everything that I've thought about. Just overall, like I said, this is just one of my favorite movies. It's super rewatchable. It's funny and it makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you really feel it, and it's super relatable in all aspects, whether you relate to any of the three girls or even Nate, where he's kind of just no, I don't know what I'm doing. You have your life together. I don't want to be with you. Sorry, I don't want to move. Whatever. I just think it's super relatable, and the writing is just perfect. I love all the music. And my favorite part is the flashbacks that just really adds to it.
Absolutely. And Tim, let's just hear your final thoughts and reviews, if you would suggest this to people to watch as well.
Yes, I definitely recommend this to people, especially if they are on the cusp of 20s to 30s, because they'll absolutely relate to this more. I'm 34 myself, and so I've kind of been a part of that, and I'm still one of those that's still trying to figure out stuff in life, and whether it's relationships or it's just life in general. And so yeah, I highly recommend it to people. It is hilarious, and it's a very, very well-made production. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it feels like it's going to be that cheesy rom-com, but I think it hits a little bit harder, and it's funny, but it still really gets to you, and you can understand how she's feeling and stuff. Especially my favorite part is the end too, where you think that he's coming back to her and you're oh no, they're going to get back together, and then it's a dream. And you're oh, okay. So I do like that, where it's not that basic cliche, here he comes back, they're going to get back together, everything is fine now. It's no, it's not the normal happy ending, but that's okay. because that's not real life, you know?
Exactly. And that's the thing I really wanted to thank you, Kayla, for choosing this movie, because if it weren't for you, I probably never would have watched this movie. And though the movies that we've covered so far have really been kind of hard hitting, really deep concept movies on this podcast, I really appreciate you picking a film that we wouldn't have probably done, kind of a really feel good movie, but there's still so much that we can talk about It's a film that kind of covers all the bases, and I would suggest this to anybody, really in any age group, because it really has something, a little bit of something for everybody, and it's really well done. The cinematography is great. It's amazing. The lighting is amazing. It's different than other rom-coms out there. It's a breath of fresh air in a genre that has become very cliche, very, very kind of stale. And so thank you so much, Kayla, for choosing this movie that probably a lot of us wouldn't have watched if it weren't for you choosing it and for the Cinema Club podcast. So thank you so much. So with that, I want to say thank you guys so much for coming on the episode. Before we go, I want to give you guys the opportunity to shout out your social medias. Let us know where we can follow you and see what's going on in your lives and what you're doing next.
So my Instagram is Kayla Asenzo with a period in between. So it's KAYLA.ASCENZO. And then also my TikTok, which is like my favorite thing. I love TikTok. It's Kayla Asenzo the same way as my Instagram. So KAYLA.ASCENZO.
And you can find me primarily on Facebook. There's Timothy Messina.
And you can also find them both through the Cinema Club if you are already a part of the Cinema Club. And as always, you can find me on Instagram, nick.fleeto.leach, and on Facebook. And please join the Cinema Club Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/the Cinema Club TCC, and listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. I would love to have as many people on the club as possible. The club is free and open, a group on Facebook. It's, like I said, a place where we can share the movies we love, talk about them, and maybe watch films we would never have watched before. So with that, we will see you on the next one.